Hello, everybody. Welcome to Metal Remains Backstage. I am Carlos here in New York City, and today we're going to talk with Charlotte Wessels. Hi, how are you today, Charlotte?
I am fine, thank you. Thanks for having me.
We are honored to have you. And Charlotte, in Metal Remains, we like to start our conversations by asking, what have you been listening to recently?
Oh, let's see. Let me open up my Spotify.
Okay.
What have I been listening to? Oh, I've been listening to my favorite classical music playlist, which is Classical Bangers. It's pretty much like the classics, like Tchaikovsky and Satie and Bach, and like a lot of those things. I've also been listening to like the new Metal Friday, like the playlist.
Okay.
I like to
Like
hear
new singles coming out?
exactly like what's coming out. And then I've been
That's a nice
listening.
way to be in the loop.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been listening to a podcast. So, yeah.
All right. Great. Thank you for sharing that. And we are here today to talk a bit about your debut album, The Obsession, released a few days ago on September 20th through
Yeah.
Napalm Records.
Friday.
We could be wrong, but from the outside, the album seems to be very personal and with a lot of different sensibilities. But this is your own creation, so please tell us, how will you define it?
This record is really the result of me looking for, because my last two albums were compilation records of songs going in all different kind of directions stylistically in terms of genre. And this record really was the result of me sitting down and thinking, okay, so if I'm making a traditional album effort again, then what do I want it to be? Like, what is the music that, gives me most joy in a way? And The Obsession is really the answer to that question. Thematically, I didn't set out to make like a concept record or anything like that. But once I sat down with the songs I thought would make it to the album and asked myself, okay, so what are all these songs about? There is a very strong overarching theme of like a fear, obsessive thoughts, and also like escapism from that. So yeah, it's quite personal. But I do always, not necessarily in what I write, but in what I release, make sure that it's that people can relate to the tracks, even if they're not necessarily going through the same things as I am,
Right. Yeah. And at any point during the creative process for this album, was there a song or maybe an arrangement or a piece of lyric that puzzled you and gave you a hard time to figure it out, how you really wanted to be the final outcome?
I think Crying Room, I think, was the trickiest to get together because I'd been working on two separate song ideas for a long time before I realized that they were actually the same song. I started writing the verse of The Crying Room, the intro, the verse, and I started the bridge of The Crying Room. And for both of them, I couldn't really finish it into like a full song until I was listening through some separate song ideas and they came by and I was like, wait, these belong together. And this rarely ever happens. I'm not usually one to put like different ideas together into one song because it almost never works. It will always feel constructed. But in this one, I was like, wait, how did I not realize that, these are in fact the same song? And then it gave me an even harder time because once I'd put those two together, I felt like exactly what, I knew what the song needed, and I started working on that. But by the time that I came to recording the last chorus, I got COVID, and I could not hit
Oh,
high notes anymore because my throat was doing so well.
right,
So not well. And then I transposed the chorus as a solution. I had to transpose the chorus down so I could sing it lower. And then I thought, yeah, but it's weird to transpose down. So then I made the outro even smaller so that it made sense in the flow of the song. And the funny thing is, like in the beginning, I was convinced that, once my COVID was over,
mhm,
I would just transpose it back up, but I actually really liked and grew attached to that twist at the end. So we kept it like that. It's very weird how these kind of how having the flu can affect how a song turns out in the end.
right, right.
Yeah.
That is very interesting what you're describing. Did this uh, keep you from sleeping, maybe, or not at all?
Oh yeah, I think this is one of the songs where I mean, it did not entirely become night work because I was also sick, so I wasn't very energetic when I finished the first version of the song. But once I had that first version finished, the trajectory after that, with the band and the rearrangement of it, that was actually like really smooth. So,
You
but
know,
the
knowing,
the songs of the month, because I don't know if people know this, but I work through Patreon and I release a song there every month. And
mhm,
also for this album, uh, like the very first versions of the song, I wrote them and put them on Patreon. So I have a deadline every month that I have to make. And when I started working on this album, I thought, am I going to do that and then at the same time work on new songs for the album, or am I going to
right,
make it a part of it? And I chose the latter. So for all of the songs that you will hear on The Obsession, you can kind of hear their first version that I recorded here with digital instruments on my Patreon. And some
wow,
changed a lot and some changed even more.
mhm,
But yeah, but you'll be able to tell. Yeah.
wow, that's great. And thank you for sharing all those details because when people uh, listen to you explaining how things were worked on and then they go back and listen to those songs, it gives them like more meaning or a new meaning, if you will, and it helps to connect people with the music. So thank you for sharing that. Um,
Likewise.
the album, The Obsession, includes many featured guests that bring a new dimension to vocals. How was your experience working with these talented artists?
Oh, it was amazing. I asked Simone to work on Dopamine because we really bonded over the topic of the song already a while ago. And when I put the first version of this song on Patreon, Simone actually texted me that she liked the song a lot. So that's when I thought, if this song is going to make it to the record, then we're going to for sure ask if Simone wants to sing on it. This is actually also an interesting one when it comes to the difference between the Patreon version and the album version, because this one on Patreon was just harp, vocals, and a little synthesizer, and that was it. So it was a really small song there. But it became like a full band version through my collaboration with the band and through Timo's arrangements, and so this one had like a really big contrast between the two versions. And so I'm really happy with what she added to the songs. I love her contributions to it. She recorded it here in the 6 Feet Under studio, which was a lot of fun.
Uh,
And then
nice.
Elisa, this is my fifth collaboration with Elisa, and the fourth, which is based on a famous poem. Ode to the West Wind was based on the poem Ode to the West Wind by Percy Shelley. And yeah, I when I was working on the song, I figured this would be such a wonderful continuation in our little thematic journey of collaborations that yeah, I asked her to participate, and she did. And also there, I really love it. I love the addition of her growls, but I also really like the harmonies and the clean vocals. So.
Yeah, yeah,
And
awesome.
then, of course, we had G Roots, the gospel choir on Praise, which was something that I was kind of hoping for since, writing the very first notes. I was like, this is a gospel song. This feels like a gospel song, even though it's not religious. But so I was also really happy that we could make that happen.
Yeah, awesome. And those songs are beautiful. um, it is clear that your vision as a solo artist is different from what you did when you went with the band you are no longer with. Is that why you decided to step out from the comfort zone into unknown territory?
No, you mean in terms of genre or?
In terms of letting your own creativity take shape?
Funnily enough, like when Delane split, I was already doing the Patreon, but it was intended as a side project, so it became my full-time thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent two years just making music by myself here in the basement with no interference, like from anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, after that, I was happy to seek other people's input again. But it's different, because I already had my moment of introspection while writing the songs. So I feel already like that basis is there. And from there on, I was actually really interested to see what would Timo do with this? What would Joey do with this? What would everyone involved do with this? So in general, yeah, of course, I'm always very happy to be able to have a vision and carry it out. But for this record, I think it is actually more maybe it's in contrast to my previous work in the sense that there was more collaboration rather than less.
Right. So it's great to hear that you have your thoughts, you put them there, and then you let other people to start making it grow, maybe in a little
Yeah,
direction.
definitely, because yeah, for example, like on the guitars, I when I write the songs, I work with digital guitar plugins, and I mean they're amazing. It's great what you can do with them nowadays, but it is a very, very big contrast, me playing guitar on a MIDI keyboard to Timo Sommer as guitar arrangements and also on the riffs. Like it's a big difference. But I do love the fact that I feel like with all of the things, like I put things into the songs in the first versions of the songs, like ideas and directions, and I feel that in working with the tracks, in that direction, it was made much bigger. So yeah, it feels like a privilege to have that, to receive that on the album. Yeah.
All right, awesome. And we were talking about Patreon previously, so let me ask you this. It seems that Patreon it's a great and supportive platform for some artists. What can you tell us about your experience with the community in that platform?
It's really wonderful. It's really encouraging. It's really motivating, and it helps me a lot in basically just realizing all of the things that I've been putting out, this year. For example, like I'm have like for my previous records, I only had like a production and distribution deal with Napalm, and now I have a full deal with them again, and they're very supportive. But I already started recording the album before I had the deal signed, because I was able to fund that. I was able to fund the recording of the album itself through Patreon. So it put me in a much
That's great.
I'm much more independent. Like, I don't have to wait. I can just do things through their support, and
That also helps you to make
so much
decisions
more.
in the moment, right?
Exactly. So yeah, it's very wonderful. And also, like, I've been like, the support is on so many levels. Like I said, like, it's on an emotional level, like on that motivating level. Like, we have the sense of community, and we do fun things together. And like, a few days before the release, we had like this online hangout where we all listened to the album together. They get previews of like all of the videos, and of course they know like the first versions of all of the songs. So it
Nice.
really feels like our baby is getting released. Like, this is really wonderful. But also, just, financially, like, it's very supportive as well. Like, we're going on tour. Before this, I was doing a few shows and I was renting all of the gear, and now we're going on tour. And if you rent so long, it's ridiculous expensive. So I had to actually buy a lot of gear for the tour, and everything is so crazy expensive. So it's really this Patreon. It yeah, it makes a lot of things possible, like, in so many different ways.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Charlotte, I would like to finish this chat by asking you what is one of your favorite backstage moments?
Ooh, meeting Lemmy was pretty
Oh,
great. Yeah.
okay. You're one
Uh,
of the lucky ones.
yeah, definitely. He was really sweet and really kind, and gave me like a whole story about how much he loved women in metal. I mean, everyone knows he loved women in general, but
Yeah.
women in metal specifically. Um, and uh, I'm also a big fan of just little moments, when some of my favorite memories are not like the biggest shows we've done, or like, the most famous people that we met, but just, you had a good show, you're all in the bus, you're having a drinks, people are telling each other jokes, you're driving to the next place.
Hmm.
Just being able to do that
Yeah.
together, hang out after a good show, have some fun, even
Right.
sometimes after a bad show. uh, it's really wonderful, and I really look forward to doing that again.
Yeah, that connection is very important. Humans are like social animals, and we
Yes.
need to be together.
Yeah.
And the music is, I think, one of the most wonderful things you can experience with a whole bunch of other people that think like you. And it is great. It's one of those moments. I think, as a fan of music myself, I think I go to shows and I love to discover new music because I'm constantly chasing for those euphoria moments that you connect with the song or with the lyric or with a riff or something in the music that makes you completely forget who you are and the world around you, and it's you and the music, and the connection is so strong that sometimes I even cry on shows when the connection is like that. So that's great.
I I almost always cry at shows. Almost always. Like, yeah. So I'll be the last one to judge for that. It's I fully agree. It can be such a powerful experience. And how do you say it? I never expect to be able to make that happen, but I think, like, it's a very high goal of mine to be able to facilitate people feeling that way, hopefully,
Yeah,
through our
I'm sure
music as
you
well.
have. I'm
Yeah.
sure you have.
Yeah, it's even if it's just a few, then it's yeah, it's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, it's the best experience in life. All right. Well, I thank you for your time. You are very kind, very talented, and we hope that everybody listen and buy your album.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.
And if you like this interview, please share it with your friends, like it, support Charlotte Wessels by buying and streaming The Obsession. Go see the band live when they come to a city near you. See you next time, but until then, stay